jumping in, so we will give it just a second to go, but thank you for joining us again. And again, if you would turn your cameras on, we'd love to see it, but with respect, if you can't, we do want to make these interactive. So as we go, if you've got questions or all, please raise your hand, put it in the chat box. Jeannie will be monitoring that with myself. We'll be looking at that, but we'll get going in just a second. I think as soon as I get the thumbs up from Jeannie, we'll get rolling.
We can get started.
All right. So welcome everyone to our November Community Cafe. Our topic today will be veterans, and we've got a pretty exciting agenda set for today and hope you'll find it useful for you. I want to start by noting that a year ago today, we had a community cafe on the very same subject, veterans. And it was on that day that one of our speakers was Brad Borders with Purple Heart Homes, who was introduced to another speaker we'll have later, Mr. Weaver, Jared, and Mr. Mike Cloy. And it opened up some doors that a year later that Brad and Sarah and Carrie are going to speak to you about. So with that, I want you to welcome Mr. Brad Borders. And Brad, if you would, give us a brief intro of who you are in terms of your veteran life as well as what you do, and then how we got here today, if you would, sir.
Awesome. Well, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And yep, I'm Brad. I'm a lifelong resident of Statesville, North Carolina. I've served last 19 years in U.S. Army Reserve, mobilized and deployed for about, on active duty, about 10 of those years. And I'll retire in about a year. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I've been working full-time here for my civilian job at Purple Heart Homes for the last 5 years. I've had a range of positions here. I'm currently VP of Outreach here now. I got last fall, I got connected with a veteran here that had been entangled with the justice system. It's a long story, but I won't do the long story. The short story is that through a felony charge, the context of his service was not mentioned at all during his trial, during his plea bargain and plea deal. And so he ended up having a felony, pleading to a felony, and no mention of the fact that he had lost many friends in combat in Afghanistan, 2 tours. No mention of the fact that 14 of his friends had taken their own lives upon return over the last 8 years. And I thought that was wrong. And I didn't know what to do about it. And then I got on Community Cafe to kind of talk about what Purple Heart Homes does. And I heard Mike talking about Veterans Treatment Court. And I was like, hey, that might work here. Do we have that here? Where is that? What is that? Right. And I just started asking a lot of questions, and through my relationship with Jared and Mike, I found out that the key people that you need to make this thing happen, to begin it, to start it, is you had to have the DA. So I talked to some folks I knew and ended up having a wonderful meeting with Carrie and Sarah from our DA's office, and really that was when I just put them to work, basically, and they really did, and they went to work, and it takes a lot of folks to make this thing happen. And so I since they did so much of that lifting, I simply wanted to kind of pause there and kind of turn it over to them about the process and what it looks like, because like as of October 1st, we have a grant now, and the court's going to happen, and we've got all the pieces in place, and it took a lot of work on their part. And so Carrie Nitsu and Sarah Kirkman, our DA, are here, and I'll turn it over to them. So thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I'm Sarah Kirkman. I'm the district attorney for Iredell and Alexander counties. And this is Carrie Nitsu, who keeps trying to edge out of the frame. She's one of my assistant DAs. So as Brad said, he made contact with us and said, you know, we need to have a meeting to talk about this Veterans Treatment Court. So Carrie and I went, and I think the clerk of court, Jim Mixon, went, and we met at Purple Heart Homes. And I talk about it being a rainy, terrible day, like I can remember it very distinctly. And we heard about Veterans Treatment Court, and we heard about how it was working in Catawba County. And we left that meeting, Carrie and I both, I think I can speak for you when I say we left that meeting saying, this is something that we need in our county. And so we came back to the office, we talked about it a little bit, and I immediately called Catawba County and said, hey, y'all have this Veterans Treatment Court. We want one. What do we do? And so we talked to Tammy West in the DA's office in Catawba County, and she gave us some information just to start and said, you know, why don't you come watch our Veterans Treatment Court? So our first order of business was Carrie and my administrative assistant, Jamie Whitley, and I. We all went to Catawba County, and we were invited to the pre-court meeting, where I think that was probably the thing that made the biggest impact on me. I mean, court was impressive too, but the pre-court meeting where all the people were together trying to figure out, they went through each veteran. They had a docket of the veterans, and they went through each one and decided what was going to be the best resolution or what next steps needed to be taken for each veteran. And there was a team who was doing that. And it was the judge who was kind of leading the discussion. The prosecutor was in there. Of course, Jared was in there. You'll hear from him in a little bit. Probation officers, people from the VA, mental health people, substance use people. Who else, Carrie? Who else was in there that I'm leaving out?
Probation, right?
Probation.
Defense attorney.
The defense attorney. And it was, instead of typically how court is adversarial, it was a collaboration, and it was everybody working together for each veteran to figure out what needed to happen. So we were allowed to attend that meeting, and then we went and we watched the session of court. And probably the part of that that made the most impact on me was watching the mentors who were in there, because each veteran has a mentor. And so we got to see that. We got to see the judge interact with each person who was in there. We were very impressed, and we said, we need to have this, and we think this can work in Iredell County. So we came back, and immediately we said, okay, first we need to check and see, because we don't have a lot of space in our terrible courthouse over here. So first we need to see, do we have a time and a place when we can have this court? So I checked with the clerk of court first. That was our first order of business. We found out that yes, there is a time. And so then the next thing was we had to meet with our chief district court judge and our senior resident superior court judge. And Brad came to that meeting, and we talked to them about the concept, and they were on board immediately. Our senior resident superior court judge is a veteran himself. They were on board immediately, and they just said, we support you, go forth. So we did. And I guess the next thing was we knew we had to get this grant. Grants are nothing I knew anything about, nothing Carrie knew anything about, nothing we ever want to know anything about again. But luckily, Purple Heart Homes hired a grant writer, somebody who specializes in that sort of thing. So we were very appreciative of that. We never could have gotten anywhere without that. And then we went to work just trying to figure out the information for the grant. And in that process, we just had Jared Weaver on speed dial and said, what do we put for this? What do we do here? Like Brad said, I can't say enough about how much Tammy West and Jared Weaver helped us and guided us through this process, and I'm sure are going to help us, right, Jared, and guide us as we go forward. our next steps are doing training on best practices and that sort of thing. And then, we hope to be up and running just as soon as possible. But we did get the grant, as Brad said. We found out October 1st. Is that right? September 30th. And it's $680 some thousand odd dollars. And we're just excited and ready to get started. Your turn.
I am excited. We are waiting to hear from Justice for Vets to tell us when that we can come in and train. And I believe our Chief District Court Judge is in the process of working on hiring the coordinator, going through that process. So we really are coming along. It does feel like it was just yesterday, but there was a lot of work in between, and I'm excited about the future for what we have. The grant work, like Sarah said, we couldn't have done it without Purple Heart Homes hiring the grant writer, because that's something that's way outside of our wheelhouse and how to do that. But I'm excited about the future and what we're going to do. And our team, everything came together rather easily, I guess I should say. Everybody that we have on our team is ready and willing and happy about participating. So that all came together really easily for us. But we can answer any questions if you have any.
Yeah, I got one. Mark Willis from Surrey County. What in your grant application, did you have any data or statistics on the potential number of clientele that are available or would qualify for your Veterans Court in the county?
That was something that we talked about that hadn't really been tracked before, as you probably have found out, that nobody tracked, who was coming into the justice system that was a veteran. But we were able to get, Brad, you can probably answer that, because I think you, along with the Veterans Services Officer, were who got those stats for us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. We had some general stats that Jared and Mike gave me. And Jared, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the data says 6.6% of all veterans across the country, according to the VA, are somehow entangled with the justice system. I think he's nodding yes. Okay, good. But then what I did, I wanted to get some real world data. So because of all the relationships that we created and that Sarah and Carrie helped with, I was able to get in touch with Bert Conley, who works at our detention center, and asked Bert, and he was very helpful. And Bert just simply canvassed through the jail, and we have a fairly large jail that has a significant number of folks in it. But there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 veterans, or 17. There were 17 veterans that were incarcerated actively in the jail right now, and with the charges ranging from first-degree murder all the way down to failure to pay child support and things like that. And so that gave us a better idea of and out of that 17, there would have been 11 that could have opted for Veterans Treatment Court, because for those that on the call and Mark, I know you're aware of this, but Veterans Treatment Court is not for violent offenders who've committed murder and robbed a store and shot somebody, but it's low-level felonies, non-violent felonies, higher level misdemeanors that are somehow connected to their time in service, and connected also to substance abuse and mental health issues. And so we were just trying to figure out what our demographic looked like, but also too, which was really helpful, is in comparison to looking at Catawba County, because they had accurate numbers, real world numbers of veterans that were coming into their program. And at the time when we started gathering this data last January, February, we started looking at it. I think, Jared, you guys had I think you guys had 13 or 14 folks in the program at that point. And so that gave us a really good idea. We could probably expect about the same here, maybe a little more, because Iredell County has our population's a little bigger than Catawba. And so just statistically speaking, we probably have a few more that would be eligible to opt in to the program. And so also for those that don't know, Veteran Treatment Court is not mandated for every veteran that comes in. They have to choose to go through the program in lieu of the the normal pathway with regard to their charges. And so and it's not something, and there's some veterans, Jared, you can help me with this. There's some veterans that say, yeah, I'm not willing to go through that difficulty because it's not a program that is for the faint of heart, because there's accountability each and every time you come to the court and you're followed up with and those left and right limits are really important for growth and for healing. And then of course, then there's the restitution aspect of it. And there was a veteran that I just observed at Catawba County that was actively making restitution for the crime that he committed monetarily, and he was paying that money back for the money that was attributed to his criminal activity, and doing really well in the program. So I'll pause right there, right before I go too far.
Well,
Probation.
let me, since I'll go too far, back to District Attorney Kirkman. So what we noted here and trying to get the same stats is we weren't getting, we didn't have any information from pretrial, nor was the sheriff's office on intake asking that question, the simple question, do you have any prior military service? So where, and I'll throw this out to you only because this is why I'm intensely interested. We started a reentry program here, and it just so happened to correspond with the sheriff's office changing his communication device inside the jail to a Paytel pad. And we asked Paytel to do an app for us so we could do a skills assessment. And one of the questions on the skills assessment was, do you have prior military service? And we just piloted it a couple of months ago. And out of 200 detainees in the detention center at the time, 191 responded to the skills assessment. And I don't have no way of verifying this yet because we have a communications issue through Paytel. 20% said they had prior military service. So that's just almost anecdotal. So I guess my question to you is, where in your process did you decide to figure out whether it's pretrial or processing into the detention center, how that is that person have military service and therefore qualify for the Veterans Court?
So that's where the jail came in, that's a question that they're asking now that they weren't asking before. And we also had probation. I think they already were asking that question. It just wasn't coming up when people entered the detention center. So we'll find that out then. And then the process will be that when we get our coordinator, the coordinator along with ADA Carrie Nitsu, who is going to be the prosecutor for the Veterans Treatment Court, will screen the case and decide, first of all, is it something that's appropriate for Veterans Treatment Court? And then if it is, then the coordinator, of course, would go to the veteran and see if they were interested in participating in Veterans Treatment Court. And I want to say this, which is off of your question, but something that I was reminded of when Brad was speaking was it's not a diversionary program. I mean, these people are getting charged and then they are going through the court system and they're going through, the process. They're not getting diverted before being charged or anything of that nature.
Madam DA, hey, Pam
Hey.
here.
Hey, Pam.
Is there any
I think I know you.
Yeah, just a little bit. Is there any way, in listening to Mark, because we know the way things process through the magistrate's office, there's so many of the charges that would be eligible that the magistrate gives an unsecured bond and they never make it to the jail. And I think a lot of the veterans, they may have whatever it is, all the determining factors now that the magistrate uses, but the reality, is there any way to talk to our clerk, to our judges, and that there is a simple question asked, do you have prior military service? And that it be gathered, because we're missing a lot of people. And we've talked about this even with domestic, cases of is assault on a female, a domestic, or is it otherwise? But I think if we could capture that early on, then that would be more of a base of a reality of what's going on in our community.
Yeah, I think that once we get started, I think the question definitely needs to be asked at the magistrate level.
So I think one thing, as I was listening, I'm wondering if that's a question possibly for Jared, because to what Brad mentioned, you guys now have some information in baseline. Is that similar to what District Attorney Kirkman and Pam mentioned? Jared, is that something you're seeing in Catawba now?
Sarah and Carrie could correct me if I'm wrong, but here in Catawba County, regardless if an individual has an unsecured bond or not, they are still taken into custody of the Catawba County Detention Center. When they come into the magistrate's office, they're not given an unsecured bond and then able to walk out of the Sally Port on that side. When they are taken in, the way our detention works is they are still given an unsecured bond. They are given to the jail staff. They are still processed in our jail, and the nurses station still sees them. And then once all of that's done, they are able to walk out the front of our jail. So that's how our detention center works. I'm not sure if that's how Iredell works or not, but the way that ours is set up, that is genuinely how we see it. And through the data, your veterans are not going to, the veterans that we target are high risk, high need. These are individuals that without this court, they'll be dead within a few months to a year. These individuals are not committing crimes that get unsecured bonds. These individuals are coming in with higher bonds, previous records. So I can't even tell you a single veteran that we have, even on our intake form, that has had an unsecured bond. Every veteran that we've even spoke with has had a bond of some sort.
Thank you, Jared. And I think that segues well into moving into having Jared give us an update there on what's going on and filling in. And then I think if there's an opportunity for Sarah, you and Carrie to at that point ask, you may have some questions about it as well, or we may open it up for the group again for more discussion. But Jared, I want to turn it over to you again, a brief intro, and then roll with it.
So my name is Jared Weaver. I was active duty Army from 2016 to 2020 with one deployment to Mosul, Iraq in 2017. And when I got out, I had a master's degree. I was bored towards the end of my military service, so I obtained a master's degree. But what I saw was even individuals who had a high school degree, the transition out of the military was not the best. You go to some class for 2 months if your leadership gives you that time off to really engage in it. And some guys could come out with technical or voc rehab certifications, and other guys could not. So the entire transition out of the program or out of the United States military, at least at Fort Bragg, was not very well handled. And Sarah, Carrie, and Brad kind of touched into the emotional response. Why do we need one for a veteran treatment court? But there's also a huge financial burden that these individuals have on the criminal justice system itself, that really isn't spoken well of. And Lance Sigmund, who's the assistant district attorney for Catawba County and is our assistant district attorney in our court, and our backup, Amber Eads, and I sat down for about 3 days and created a cost benefit analysis. And this data was taken in September, back when we had 16 individuals in our court, and now we have 21. So the data still applies. Just if we were to redo it now, the benefit would be even greater. So as I spoke to earlier, a lot of the individuals that we work with are high risk, high need. That is the number one thing for them to be in our court. What you find is people who are kind of low risk, they get one DUI. If they get into a group of career criminals, basically, they're more likely to become a career criminal than the career criminals kind of go down in their criminological thinking. So all the individuals we work with are high risk, high need. Not a lot have money, kind of couch surfing, doing whatever it takes to make ends meet. From the day that they are arrested, if they have a class H&I drug felony, for example, say they have PTSD or MST, which is military sexual trauma, which 80% of our participants have one or the other, and they don't have money to bond themselves out, upon arrest, before they are even seen in Superior Court for their trial, if they do not agree to a plea agreement, it can be anywhere from 166 to 225 days, which is roughly $17,000 to $23,000 alone spent on incarceration here in the Catawba County Jail. And that's for one person and one person alone. When you look at that times 20, the numbers are always increasing, and housing individuals is not getting any cheaper. Another thing that we found is when we did our data and we had Dr. Jamie Vasky from Western Carolina review our statistics, we are able to find veterans in the Catawba County Jail within 24 to 48 hours, and within a week was our average time to have these individuals, their bond unsecured, and then moved to either a residential facility or a facility within our community, such as Oxford Homes, Exodus Homes, which are halfway houses. And then we work directly with Catawba Valley Health, which offers a free, no cost house for minimum of 90 days. The individual doesn't pay for food, transportation, or anything. And they can go there, stay, and kind of get back up on their feet. We help with for jobs through NC Works. We have a DVOP, and kind of get them the basic necessities that individuals need: job, housing, food, shelter. And the guys and gals that we work with actually take those basic necessities and they run with it. Another big key point in our program is that a lot of the individuals that we have found when we did our original data were not actually tracked because of the reason as to why they got out of the military, or their life on the outside of the military. They were not involved with the VA. So many of the individuals were not connected with the VA prior to VTC. And back in September, we had 16 participants. Of the 16, only 3 were connected with the VA and receiving benefits such as healthcare and disability assistance or other programs that the VA offers. Through this program, we were able to get an additional 9 people registered, which gave them healthcare and access to medicine, doctors, anything they needed that the VA can provide them. And this was also bringing in a cumulative of almost $28,000 a month between these 9 individuals that they were getting in disability assistance, which in return was bringing over a little bit over $350,000 a year into our community alone, which is huge when you think about it. And when we dove further into it, the Veteran Service Office here in Catawba County is roughly bringing in $55 million to our county. And that's money going directly into veterans' hands that are being spent here in the community. And when we presented this data to our community managers for Catawba County, they kind of asked us for a real life example. And luckily Lance is quick on his feet, and we could kind of turn it around in 5 minutes. And one of the most beneficial aspects of the Veterans Treatment Court is reducing recidivism rate. These individuals are constantly kind of coming into the criminal justice system. They're getting 3 meals and a bed, and then they're back out after serving their time. One of our participants spent a total of 264 days incarcerated in the Catawba County Jail and 365 days incarcerated in state prison since 2018. So that's 2018 to 2021. At $102 a day, this individual cost the county alone $27,104 and just shy of $38,000 on state incarceration. And since 2018, the longest the individual was able to stay outside the community corrections without new charges was 5 months. When we were able to get involved with this individual, it was August of 2021. He is now currently almost 500 days sober and has a house, stable living. He's currently making over $60,000 a year while raising 2 kids. So being able to turn these individuals' lives around completely. And that's only one of the 20 stories that we get to work with. And the main aspect of our program, because we have a drug court here in Catawba County, and it serves its purpose and it does a great part. But what makes us stand out is actually my counterpart and majority of the brains to our operation is Mike Cloy. And what he is and does is he gathers individuals who are good standing citizens in our community. They don't have a crazy criminal history, and they can be a mentor to these individuals. A lot of these guys and girls get out of the military and they don't have a place to go. They don't have anybody to rely on. They don't have a kind of motivational factor behind them anymore. And the mentor is that key aspect, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning and maybe they're going through some stuff mentally, or I know Mike's mentee calls him and just asks him for basic advice that to anybody on this call would be normal. It's just not clicking in his brain. And Mike is able to explain it, break it down, and work with the individuals. And without Mike Cloy and his hard work, I don't think our treatment court would be successful, because the mentorship is such a key aspect in this program. So I will let Mike explain his part to further show what we do.
Yeah, like I said, to me, 27 years active duty, started out as a youngster in the Special Forces, Green Berets, got out of that, went into the infantry. I was an officer, commanded troops all the way up to brigade level. Have a master's in military resilience, master's in strategy, master's in counseling, master's in Bible theology. So I kind of gravitate to that world of care for people and planning, the tactical, operational, strategic planning. Military person growing up, dad did 33 years in the Army, brother did 25, son did 7. Daughter married a soldier, West Pointer. My father-in-law did 22. You add it all up, it's a lot. It's all we've ever known. And so it's in our DNA. It's in my DNA to take care of those who've raised their right hand to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And as we know, there's a small population of us that do that. Less than 1% of our eligible, that's even another discussion, those that can even qualify to get in the military, only 1%, less than 1% of our youth raise their right hand. So we'll talk about 2 things. One, a little bit about mentoring, and then transition a little bit into some crisis opportunities, crisis action opportunities that are new to the organization I actually work for. I volunteer for the court as the mentor coordinator. I am also a mentor to 3 veterans in that court. But I work for Asheville Buncombe Community Christian Ministries, in particular the Veterans Services of the Carolinas. And that's critical in the sense that we have wraparound services for all our veterans that are in the court. So when they come to the court, not only do they get linked up with a mentor, but we can work with them in the treatment team to identify housing needs, employment needs, a host of other needs that are behind the curtain that eventually reveal themselves through good case management. And then also we have a care coordination center that can help answer those questions like I can't pay for my driver's license, don't have money, and or I've got a bill that I need help with, that type of thing. And our care coordination touches the entire state of North Carolina, various agencies and partners that can come alongside a veteran and provide those services. So the wraparound services from where I work help the court and educating mentors as to what those services are and what numbers to dial. Now, as far as crisis training, there are a couple things I do. I also work with partners in the critical incident training with law enforcement and how to de-escalate with veterans if they encounter a veteran on a call, and how to de-escalate if they suspect that the veteran is having a mental health breakdown, be it PTSD, even a traumatic brain injury, and how to talk to a veteran, how to engage a veteran, how to think like a veteran. And we even have stories of many in our court who are in the Veterans Treatment Court who have, when they become human again, right? They get off the substance, they reclaim their brain, and they look back at the incident where they were arrested and apprehended and sent to the hoosegow, as we say in the military. And they are grateful for the way the officer who engaged them treat them with respect and dignity. And so we use a lot of that goodness to grow our officers in CIT, and I'm thankful for partners in particular. They're very assertive in their critical incident training. Gene and Amber taking care of me and allowing me to have access to these EMS and law enforcement officers throughout all the counties they serve. What is particular note with Veteran Services in the Carolinas is here recently the VA awarded us a grant of $750,000 a year for the next 3 years to help stop suicide in the military ranks. The VA has realized that they cannot answer that problem without the local community engaged. Many of you know that we have about 750,000 veterans that have registered with the VA, and often our state will claim that we have 750,000 veterans in North Carolina, which is totally inaccurate because it is only a means of counting through the VA. So if you are receiving services or have presented yourself to the VA, you're counted. But that's only 30 to 40% of the veterans that are in the state of North Carolina. So they're up to 2 million veterans in this state that have never received VA services, cannot, in many cases, don't qualify for VA services. And so therefore, if they have a mental health breakdown or an episode and they cannot get VA care, they often do not qualify financially for various other means for mental health care. And so this Sergeant Fox grant, that's what it's titled, Sergeant Fox grant, allows us to put together a clinical team led by the gentleman who worked for the VA, who's got a master's in clinical social work, who has a team of educational specialists who go around doing training for mental health first aid and QPR and several other things across the counties in the state. We have case managers who are involved in, once the veteran has been received into our program and is now receiving care mainly through the VA or elsewhere. We have peer supports who are out there in the woods, meeting and greeting and finding those that need help. And this allows them to have someone to come alongside them and get the care they need, and hopefully reduce those suicide numbers that we know are just atrocious. So that's the critical side of things, where we can, if we get a phone call from a veteran who is contemplating suicide, it might even be ideation of some sort, then our peers will go immediately get to that location and or call the appropriate authorities and get there and meet them at that location and help them through it, and make sure the professionals get involved, the mental health professionals to get involved, be it the VA or the local community, to make sure they get care. We're still working through the nuances of this grant. It started in October. As you know, with the VA, everything's pushing a wet rope uphill with them. It takes a little while for them to figure out what they're doing. We're way in advance of them. We've been doing this a little bit already for years, but now it's come to a unified effort. So with that grant, with the housing grants, with the employment grants, and with the care coordination center at Veteran Services of the Carolinas, we're able to find our veterans and get them in the right hands. That's basically what I think I was asked to talk about.
Thank you so much, grizzled soldier Mike Cloy. I have to point that out on there. And, I've had the opportunity through this to spend some time with several of our veterans. And if you haven't, do so, spend time. The camaraderie that those men and women have for each other and the passion they have for what they're involved in, supporting other veterans, it's unlike anything I've experienced at all. And I think we need to recognize that. And they do such a, that's 1% of our population doing so much to give us all what we've got today. So greatly appreciate what you all do. I did want to ask everybody to hold your questions to the end. We've got a few more things to bring out, and then I want to open it up to our veterans before questions on if you've got anything else going on that could be relevant to the group related to veterans. But I wanted to turn it back over to Jared because he's going to speak to us about the stand down and kind of give us some information about what that is and what it means. But after that, like I said, open it up to our people that are directly connected about what else is going on and how to be involved and supported. Jared?
So Catawba County is a individual county when it comes to a stand down. And what a stand down is I think we're on our 22nd annual one now. So it's been going on for 20-ish years. We have the VA involvement, but the VA is not in charge of our stand down. We have a few local leaders, Rick Van Det, Larry McMullen, John Helton especially. I think he's the one who is in charge of it. And what it is it's an event that we now host at the Catawba Valley Community College. And it's an event where veterans can come and see how much support they have in the community. For example, I think last year we had 6 dentists that provided free dental needs to the veterans. They had 2 pre-screening days that they could come and figure out what they need, and then they are able to, on that day, address their needs there at the dental clinic at CVCC. They have boots, clothes, tents. A lot of the community organizations come out and just give their support. And I think last year we addressed almost 210 veterans alone on this short 6-hour span day. This year, it's going to be April 21st. Doors open at 9 o'clock, I believe, and it goes till about 1:30, 2:30-ish. And as soon as I know more, I will let Jerry and Jeff know more. We just actually had our first meeting last week at the partners facility in Hickory. So we just locked in the date of April 21st, and we are excited to see. And if anybody is looking to be involved or get involved, let me know and we can point you in the right direction. It's a great community event to show support for our veterans.
Thank you so much, Jared. And like I mentioned, I want to open it up to not just our speakers, but other veterans or persons connected to veterans and supporting veterans in the community to give us any information or what else is going on that you would find valuable for the group. And you may have already given it all, and that's okay as well. So I'm gonna put all of you on the spot. Brad, Jared, Mike, Mark.
Yeah, I got a question for clarification that goes back to both Jared and Mike. The definition of high risk, high need. So how does that get defined? So when I'm asked that here, make a presentation, what are that parameters of high risk, high need when it comes to the veteran sport?
Probation, if the individual is already on probation, they have their life needs assessment, which is an assessment that probation does. I think it's roughly 33 questions, and that can show, based off the individual's history, if they're determined high risk, high need. If the individual is not yet on probation and or here in Catawba County, we do a predisposition, which means upon completion of our court, their charges would be dismissed by District Attorney Scott Riley. We do the ORAS, which is the Ohio Risk Assessment Score. And what that is it's a series of questions that myself or our probation officer, Officer Knight, will sit down and gather with these individuals, and it's based on a scoring system, and dependent on how the individual answers and scores is how they're marked. And it can be low risk, low need, and I've seen low risk, high need, just depending on the individual. So that's how we in turn determine their needs eligibility.
So you take that info and that packet goes to the district attorney for a recommendation for court?
We let Lance Sigmund figure out whether they're eligible for the court or not first. Our key main goal is to get, if the individual is in jail or is floating around in the community, our first goal is to kind of get them up, see if they're even approved for the court. Because if they're not approved for the court, there's no point of sitting down and asking this questionnaire. It's just better to get them situated with organizations such as ABCCM or Veteran Services of the Carolinas to get them the stability that they need.
Okay, thanks.
And let me follow up, Mark. One of the things that's critical for the mentor side of things is that they take the veteran without any knowledge of any of this. All right, so I'm not in the treatment team meetings. That's why when y'all came to visit, you're watching the team meeting, I'm not in there. And there's a reason, because I don't want to carry that mail to a mentor that I'm assigning to a veteran. I am looking for, now Jared and I do talk. So Jared will tell me, this one, he's got a little quirkiness here, or he's doing well in this area. He might relate to someone that's like this. And so the mentor is brought together with a veteran without any baggage. And then the other side of that is that, and that hopefully will allow the veteran to just be himself, be herself. And then The same thing happens when the mentor is with the veteran in the court. The mentor never speaks on behalf of the veteran. And the only thing the mentor may do is teach the veteran how to tell the story, how to tell their story, how their week is gone, how their treatment's going, now we got to be careful there because we don't want to get in front of the defense attorney, right? So it's a little bit of a balance there. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for any of our people that have spoken today?
Pamela, to touch back on the magistrate situation. So Iredell is different. However, we kind of approached this at a full go around when we did it. So another thing that we do with our magistrates is our magistrate has 3 sides: a community side, a officer side, and then a jail side. On all 3 sides, there's a sign that asks, "Are you a veteran?" If the individual in front of the magistrate does say, "Hey, I'm a veteran," just so we could not miss anybody and nobody falls through the cracks, the magistrate marks their shuck and paperwork with a red V. When that is sent up to the clerk's office, I think our clerks pick up the paperwork from the magistrates 2 or 3 times a day, and they are gone through at the clerk's office. As soon as the individual in charge of that sees the red V on their shuck, it is given to the clerk who's in charge of our court, Amy Yoder. And at that time, she pulls the shuck and emails me, and I can pull up their charges and contact information.
Hey, for District Attorney Kirkman. So it all comes down to dollars sometimes. What do you think it's going to cost on an annual basis to run your court if you had what Catawba has at, say, 20 people?
Well, I mean, really the only thing that I think we're paying for, and Jared could help me on this, is for the coordinator. So, I mean, I already have a prosecutor. We already have court in session. They'll already have to provide a clerk and a bailiff and a judge. So really the coordinator is the expense.
And the defense attorney gets paid through.
Yeah, and the defense attorney gets paid through the state. So.
And maybe incentives.
Yes.
Right.
So there isn't
So-
really a big need for somebody to be processing a lot of invoices. It's primarily the pay that goes to the court manager.
Yes.
Okay.
So sorry about that. I can kind of hit on that. Our team is all volunteers. So the only 2 individuals paid through this court is the coordinator and the defense attorney. The defense attorney is paid by the state. It's the same system that a normal individual would get in district or superior court for public representation. Our budget last year, I think, concluded like $70,000, and that's for us paying for the coordinator position, sending 3 individuals to Nashville, Tennessee for four days, I believe, Mike, and receiving all training, everything that's our incentives and everything that is kind of encompassed in that. Out of the 14 individuals that make up the team, 1 person is paid through the grant. When we write an expansion grant, our next goal is to hopefully get Mike a part-time job so he can spend more time with me and help me out molding this program. But other than that, everybody else is a volunteer. Judge Aycock volunteers his time every Thursday. Lance Sigmund, who would be the equivalent to Carrie, volunteers his time. And that is kind of written in the grant as a payback for the federal government. For example, the federal government gave us a $330,000 grant for 3 years. They kind of want to make sure that the funds are getting matched. So that's kind of the contribution on the county side is Lance gives me 5 hours a week of his time to filter out all these individuals. Judge Aycock gives 5 hours a week to do court, and it's a contribution to the grant, if that makes sense.
Is there any discussion about potential input from whatever your counties are getting from opioid litigation settlement funding?
Not yet. Catawba County has been close-knit on where and how that money will be spent. Like I said, the data speaks for itself. You can't argue it. We're bringing and saving close to $1 million a year for this program alone. So, but that is above my pay grade.
Okay.
Mark, there's a component that gets lost sometimes, and when it comes to cost avoidance and or who's making contributions, and the court actually produces a group of veterans who give back. And so we have veterans that are in the program that are already looking at how can they give back to their community, and they're looking to volunteer. And so we're even thinking about an alumni group of those who graduated from the particular program. It's amazing. I think you saw this when you visited us. Our veterans who are in the program keep in touch with each other. They also mentor each other. Like, dude, don't do this. You know, I know you got an urge, but don't do this. And so they're doing some tribal mentoring going on. And then they are in a tribe once they graduate. They're graduates of a program. And they're in this alumni group going to be looking for opportunities to go into community and volunteer, to include helping those that are in the program find volunteer projects as part of the program. So the energy of giving back it's not only savings, but it's also giving back. Hope that helps.
Hey, I want to jump in, Mike. I appreciate the conversation that we had on the text the other day with one of the clients from the Catawba County. We had somebody in Iredell that wanted to donate coats to Catawba County, and I contacted Tammy and Mike. And so one of their clients that came through their court is doing a coat drive as part of his community service to give coats to veterans. So, you know, I love it how those guys are focusing on giving back to others. Thank you, Mike. That's awesome for you and Jared.
Thank everybody for being here, and we are closing in on our time, and we try to keep this right at an hour just to be respectful of everybody. Obviously, you can see how powerful this is. Like I said, the Iredell event happened, the grant happened because the right people happened to show up last year, same day, the day before Thanksgiving, to listen and see what's going on in the community. So I encourage you all to use partners as a support mechanism to link. That's one of the roles our community engagement team plays, is to provide linkage. You can email us. I'll put my info in the chat box. Email us if you're interested in being a part of the collaboratives for your specific county. With that, I want to turn it over to Jeannie Patterson, who's going to give you a little bit of information about what's coming up in December. And I think it's very important.
So thank you very much. First of all, I just wanted to mention that in the chat, Jared, I believe you posted something about how there's a sign at the magistrate's office. And so if someone self-identifies as a veteran, then their shuck is labeled with that. So Pam, I don't know if you saw that or not. So, but thank you, Jerry. So I'll be very quick because it is after 11, but we're going to be talking about next month about all the trainings that we do in the community to let everyone know what is available. But also this is your time to tell us what are some things that you need so that we can maybe get some better idea about maybe some trainings we can bring to the community to help us all to be more aware of things that are happening, particularly around behavioral health and other social issues as well in the community. And I'll end it at that. Thank you so much. Yes.
Who are these trainings designed for? Because I don't think everybody understands who these are for.
So they actually, we do a variety of trainings now around suicide prevention, trauma, just a variety of things, including some actually social issues. They're available to anyone in the community. All you need is internet access and a computer. Register for them. They're totally free. And most of the trainings that we do online last 2 hours or less. There are a couple that are labeled that they're longer for particular reasons. In addition to that, I'll do a lot of in-person trainings. Of course, see Mike and some of you folks a lot when we're doing crisis intervention training and some of those things, but mental health first aid and a lot of those things. But anybody in the community who would like to attend a training is welcome to do that at no charge.
Thank you. I asked that question. Obviously, Jeannie knows I knew the answer. The reason is I want you all to feel free to share what she said with businesses and the rest of the broader community, that group, because that's the only way we get in front of this versus always playing catch up. So thank you.
And I'm putting my email address in the chat as well. Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. Spend time with your families. Get some rest.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you for all that you do, everyone.